The ordinal classifications option can be set to full or to adjacent only. Now, to see how that choice will impact our results, let's again look at these affective realism data and the positive, neutral, and negative ratings. Now, recall that the ordinal pattern, the predicted ordinal pattern, is that the positive ratings should be greater than the neutral ratings, which should then be greater than the negative ratings. So with that pattern in mind, the full option allows us to look at all possible pairs of combinations there within that pattern. So for case number 1, for example, we'll compare the positive to the neutral, and then the positive to the negative, and then the neutral to the negative. So we have 3 possible combinations there of the 3 orderings. Since we have 45 individuals then, we're going to have 3 times 45 possible pairwise comparisons that can go into our PCC index, looking at the data in that way. So if I select OK and run the analysis, here are the classifiable pairs of observations. So again, considering the orderings in terms of their pairs. And if we look at all possible pairs, 3 times 45 gives us 135. So of those 135 possible pairs of combinations, or of comparisons rather, 83 were correctly classified. There's the PCC index of 61.48%. Now if we scroll up here, we can see that sure enough, we've chosen the full pattern of ordinal relations to be analyzed. Now let's go back to the data and then to the analysis again. And now let's select the adjacent only option. Now with the adjacent only option, it's only going to look at those pairwise comparisons for adjacent orderings. So in other words, for case number 1, positive to neutral, that comparison, and then neutral to negative for that comparison, because they're adjacent in the pattern. So again, here's our ordinal pattern. So positive is adjacent to neutral, and neutral is adjacent to negative. So we're only going to have 2 possible pairs of comparisons there for the adjacent only option. So we should see 90 for the classifiable pairs of observation, 2 times 90. Each person will have 2 possible combinations there, or pairs, positive, neutral, neutral, negative. So we'll select OK. And sure enough, there we see the 90 classifiable pairs of observations. Of those, 51 were correctly classified, about 57%. And if we scroll up a little bit, again, we can see the option selected there, adjacent ordinal relations only. Now, of course, the option that you choose is entirely up to you as the researcher. Choose the option that makes most sense to you theoretically, that matches up with your prediction. Now, one bit of advice, though, is that the adjacent only option does test a more restrictive sort of pattern. For example, if you're expecting a nice monotonic decrease across the orderings, then you probably want to use that adjacent only option. So that way you make sure that from ordering 1 to ordering 2 to ordering 3, you're getting a decrease every time. Or if you're predicting the opposite, an increase, let's say, you want to make sure from ordering 1 to ordering 2 to ordering 3, there's an increase every time. So the adjacent only does test a more restricted hypothesis or pattern compared to the full option.